it doesn't look good on paper.
You mean from like a scheduling standpoint or just overall?
Team. I'm not, maybe all of it, but
All
I
of
haven't
it.
even looked at the schedule. I'm sure I have at some point, but I'm just talking about the team, like looking at certain teams, just about any team in the country, and saying, okay, well, here are the pluses, here are the minuses. Looking for the pluses on this team.
Well, have you heard that Bobby Petrino's back in town? I guess
He
that's
can scheme. Gonna scheme it up.
So we did I did a collaboration with another podcast by the name of Don't Read the Comments podcast. Shout out to Tim Neal and my boy Travis Ford. And we did a schedule breakdown, right? Not a deep dive. Well, Tim and I were both, I think Tim ended up at either 4-8 or 5-7. I ended up at 5-7. I said all off season I wasn't going to do one. I wasn't going to do a prediction until maybe after fall camp. And then I got to thinking about it. Well, you know what? It's talking season. I'm the only person who's held out, on doing this, as far as I know. And I kind of just jotted down like the pros, the pluses and minuses. And there's that is ultimately how you come to the 5-7 conclusion, at least for me anyways. There's I guess it's more, and you and I have discussed this. I feel like every year I've been coming on the show now for a minute, and it seems like every year I say kind of the same thing. I go based on how many questions versus how many answers do we have going into a given season, and there are just so many questions with this team. The offensive line is basically, it's all new for the most part. It's all new. I mean, you've got a lot of transfers, and yeah, Carmona. They got it at San Jose State. His PFF numbers are off the chart. I know his recruiting was big. I know that there were a lot of teams that wanted him, a lot of other P4 schools or whatever. I only consider the SEC and the ACC really power conferences anymore. But sorry to the ACC folks and to the Big 12 people. But he had a lot of offers, and they picked up Nichols from Tennessee, who's going to play center more than likely. There's so many questions there. Their PFF numbers are not off the charts. When you do a deep dive on some of their numbers, the sacks given up, the hurries given up. Oh my gosh, like there's just question marks there. And then you talk about, again, Petrino. While I respect what he did at A&M, he actually improved them by something like 11 points per game a year ago, which put them in the category of one of the most improved offenses just from a points per game standpoint. I think A&M's offense ended up third most improved from the year before. And now you got Taylon Green out of Boise State. When you do a deep dive on his analytics and his numbers and where he's completing his throws and his completion percentage versus a clean pocket and scrambling outside the pocket, they're not good. Doesn't mean he won't excel in Petrino's offense, but so many questions. The depth at defensive line, the depth at linebacker, what's going on really at the nickel spot and safety. It's just, there's so many questions, and it's really hard for me to see this team going bowling. I should say it's hard, because 5 wins is close, but it's the more you just kind of read page by page what everyone else is saying, what you see at spring camp, and just what we know based off of what they have coming in, it's just a bit of a challenge to get them to bowl eligibility. Doesn't mean it's impossible though.
And Ty, that's what was going through my mind when you told me 5-7. I thought, I can envision, Ty, I might be wrong, but I was envisioning you immediately as soon as you said 5-7, when you were going through that exercise, trying to stretch and find the 6th win, try to get them to bowl eligibility. Could they get that extra win?
They're going to have to do something. They're going to have to get an upset somewhere. I mean, you kind of look at what's happening at A&M. They've got a new guy, new coach, new system. Maybe you can sneak a win in Arlington, but we've not had a whole lot of success down in Arlington unless Petrino was the head coach. You get some games in Fayetteville. I mean, I couldn't see. Here's the thing: how many times out of 10 games Do you see Arkansas beating Auburn on the road? I would give them maybe 3 times out of 10, maybe a 30% chance. Same thing could probably be said of Tennessee and Fayetteville. I know it could be. Tennessee's going to, I think, be really good. LSU's in Fayetteville. Maybe you could sneak out one of these in Fayetteville, but then you've got Ole Miss, Texas are both going to be in Fayetteville. You're on the road in Columbia. We know how poorly Arkansas's played against Missouri, period. Even in years where you felt like Arkansas was the better team, they still can't beat Mizzou. Mizzou takes this game to a whole different level that compared to the Arkansas side of things. And I think that's what's always kind of given them the extra leg up in those matchups. Last year, they were just purely that good of a football team. They dominated Arkansas. I don't know. I can't find it unless maybe again you could sneak up on A&M down in Arlington. Maybe you can get Mississippi State. There's some change happening there, but there's just, there are question mark matchups, right? Like, I don't know whether to buy into the Auburn hype or not, with Hugh Freeze. I know a lot of people are pretty big on them. Maybe, I don't know. Elko at A&M, anytime you got a one or first year guy, we'll see. I don't know. It's just it's a challenge. Again, not impossible. And I did catch some hate in my own Discord of all places. In my own Tuss Talk Discord, I caught a little bit of hatred from some folks. To LAB that Arkansas I should put them at least bowl eligibility. And I don't know, maybe I'll get there, but it's going to take me seeing the product on the field before I can make that prediction.
Ty, I appreciate you being here. Let me hit you with this. This is coming from Athlon via an SEC assistant coach, anonymous, opposing coach from the SEC. So here's this particular coach's take. This is the hot seat job for the SEC heading into the season. Sam Pittman is such a well-respected guy across the industry. You really feel for him having a guy like new offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino, who the fans and boosters probably think should be the head coach, coming in underneath him. That's the SEC right there. If Petrino can get quarterback Taylon Green ready, they might have a shot at 500 this year, but they have a shaky situation with their offensive line. Losses in the spring. Is 500 enough to keep Sam? The defensive line is their best unit probably, but they just don't have the overall defensive talent right now to compete in this league.
I don't see any. I think all that's pretty accurate. I mean, especially the part about Petrino. I can tell you right now, if you asked the average Arkansas fan who they would rather as a head coach right now, Bobby Petrino or Sam Pittman, I know where the answer would go. I know because I read my comments and I read Twitter and I'm on Facebook and I talk to people. I'm in, I don't know how many group chats and people in my DMs. Like, I'll tell you right now, at least to me, and it certainly seems like Petrino's the guy that they want to be the guy. And that's got to be rough for Sam. It has to be. I know in the back of his mind somewhere he knows this. However, he could change the narrative by, I don't know, going on the road and maybe getting an upset at Oklahoma State down in Stillwater. 11 a.m. kickoff. I mean, I think Oklahoma State's going to be – I love what they've got going on. That running back of theirs might be one of the best in the country, if not the best. And I know they got some parts moving around too as well. A lot of, just some change throughout the offseason. But Gundy's got those guys rolling. But maybe you change the narrative by starting the year off 3-0, going down to Auburn, and playing a really tough game against Auburn. Then you go down to Arlington and you get a win. All of a sudden, the narrative changes. Nope, we're actually happy with Sam being the guy and Bobby calling the offense and Travis Williams on defense. And I'm telling you, Mark, I love this defensive staff. I really do. I think they have out-recruited some of their areas, considering the circumstances, right? I mean, no, they're not putting together an all SEC roster on the defensive side of the ball, but the NIL just apparently isn't there, I guess. I don't really know what's going on, but it's difficult to recruit to any down program. But what's his name said, your first interview there, it's difficult when your own backyard doesn't produce enough talent, and Arkansas is certainly in that category. And you could say the same thing for offense as well. But I think that part, I read that. I read that, or actually, no, someone, I think they read it over the air on the radio maybe, but I heard it somewhere and I remember just shaking my head like, yeah, I don't know where the lie is. I can't detect the the fiction there.